our webinar on Cuba tonight. My name is Liz Reese, and I'm delighted to be your host for this very informative webinar with two of our colleagues, Pamela Reynolds, who is a Spanish teacher from Long Island, is joining us, as well as Mike Eisenberg tonight to talk with us about Cuba. With all the excitement surrounding the opening of Cuba, we wanted to take some time to explore this destination and explain how a trip with ACIS to Cuba will work. People are rightly intrigued by this one-time forbidden fruit destination. And though I know many people, including myself, are really eager to go there, there are many questions about what to expect when planning a visit to a destination that not many U.S. citizens have been to before. To begin, we're going to start with a poll just to find out a little bit about why you are joining us tonight. We are going to cover all these topics that we list here, but I just wanted to hear from you what you wanted to hear most about. So while that's going, I just want to take a second to tell you a little bit about how the webinar will work. You will notice you have a panel where you can type questions. You're all in listen-only mode, so that means you can't actually ask questions, but you can use that panel to type in questions. We have a few of our colleagues online right now who recently went to Cuba, and they're here to answer your questions. We also have Ward Dillmore from our Encore division here to answer questions if anyone leading an Encore ensemble has questions. All right, so let's check those poll results. Sorry. Okay, most people want to hear about the travel details and logistics, as well as the ACIS itinerary details, and we're going to cover all of those, which is great. Thank you so much for that feedback. So now I want to just spend 1 minute and allow our panelists to speak a little bit about themselves. Pamela, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Pamela Reynolds, and I'm a Spanish teacher on Long Island, a public high school. And I first traveled abroad as a high school freshman. I've been traveling ever since, and I love sharing my passion for travel with my students. Last week, I completed my 10th ACIS trip, and I recently became an academic travel advisor for ACIS. And regarding Cuba, I traveled to Cuba in August of 2013, so I'm excited to be here to talk about my details and my experience there.
Thank you so much. And Mike Eisenberg is the former president of ACIS, and he's going to tell you a little bit about his experiences with ACIS and with Cuba.
Well, first of all, it's just great to be back at ACIS. I was around when ACIS was founded in 1979. Pete and I had a lot of fun together, and part of me was left behind at ACIS, and it's always been part of me, and it's just great to be back with you. After I left ACIS, I was a professor at Bentley University. And while I was there, I went to Cuba to do academic research. I didn't realize at the time how much work it was to be a teacher. So when I learned how much work it was to be a teacher, I wasn't sure that was what I was meant to do for the rest of my life. So when I got to Cuba, I just decided really what I want to do is start bringing people to Cuba, and I got involved with educational travel in Cuba again in 2000. For the last 15 years, I've been really focused on developing all sorts of different programs in Cuba. The requirements in Cuba are that from a U.S. point of view, you've got to have a full-time schedule of people-to-people experiences. My organization has developed just outstanding experiences that you have interacting with Cubans. One of these programs have to be consistent with U.S. policy. U.S. policy is to give the Cuban people a window to see really what people in our country are like. And the kinds of experiences are the types of things that people are really going to find very compelling and really just something extremely special. I have so many favorites, but one is there are a lot of social projects in Cuba. One of them is called Muraleando. Muraleando is a neighborhood project where the community just got together to beautify the neighborhood. And there are all kinds of sculptures, and there are all kinds of murals that are painted on these very old, rundown places. The materials are very limited, and it's amazing how inventive they are. But they teach art to students there. They have musical and dance groups, and our groups actually are invited to have a dinner with the people in Muraleando. And there's lots of dancing, and it's really something that's a lot of fun. But for me, it's just great to be back with ACIS. A lot of organizations approach me about maybe working with them about developing programs for high school students, but I just couldn't make myself feel comfortable anyplace else. And it's just really great to be back here, because I know what a great job everyone here has continued to do since the years that I was here.
That's awesome. We are delighted to have you back as part of the team, Mike. It really is wonderful to be able to offer these trips. And I know everyone at ACIS is really excited to get these trips going. So I think one of the biggest questions that everyone has right now about Cuba is, you know, how the policies have changed and what that means for us as U.S. citizens traveling there. So my question to you is, you know, since the policy changed this fall, what does that mean? Can you explain, you know, how and why ACIS groups are now allowed to visit Cuba? I know we worked on getting a license for a very long time, and ACIS was about to get a license to travel to Cuba this fall when the policy change occurred. So I would just love to hear from you about what are the changes that happened and what it now means and why we're able to go.
Well, in the past, it was always possible to get a specific license. But in order to get a specific license, you had to apply to the U.S. Treasury. Now, you still have to fulfill exactly the same licensing requirements. You still have to have a full-time program of people-to-people activities. But you don't have to apply to the government to get that license. ACIS is responsible. We are responsible to make sure that any travelers who go to Cuba are participating in a full-time program of people-to-people meetings and exchanges. And I don't know, that's really what makes these programs so great. They're not only great from the point of view of U.S. travelers who go, but they're just as great from the point of view of the Cuban people, because it gives them a chance to get to know us just as it gives us a chance to get to know them. And you know, when there's been a wall between people for a long time, an artificial wall, and that wall comes down, there's just something very engaging about being among the first to be there. You know, when I was a student in 1968, I was in Paris in '68, and I remember that was just a very special time to be in Paris. And you know, in the 1980s, one of the destinations that ACIS worked a lot in was in the then Soviet Union, and we watched it change and break up, and now it's Russia and all the other programs. And being in Berlin when the wall came down, that was something very compelling. But being in Cuba right now, it's one of the places where just everyone feels there's change happening and things are getting better. And part of it getting better is normalizing friendships and relationships with us. And I don't know, you'll be amazed at how welcome you are when you go to Cuba right now, and how just great it feels to be there. It's you're somebody special when you turn up right now.
Yeah, it really is an opportunity to be part of history right now.
Exactly. This is the moment. And you will, if U.S. policy is to allow the Cubans to get to know us. We're expected to be our own best goodwill ambassadors, and that's why we're going. And to the Cubans, this is a chance. Instead of not having an opportunity to get to know us, it's an opportunity for them to get to know us.
Yeah.
And we've worked on the ACIS program now in Cuba for several months. There's a lot of great preparation that's been in. We took a great group of people from ACIS down to Cuba with us, and just it was magic. Pete and I, Peter Jones, ACIS president, and I used to travel lots of places together and share the excitement of being there together. And we had an opportunity to share the excitement of being together in Cuba, and we both agreed there's just something very special about being there right now. And we both share, we just want to share it with as many teachers and students as we possibly can.
Yeah, well, and so do we. I mean, that is the overall goal of the webinar right now, is to get as many people going now before it really changes even more. So you talked about the people-to-people exchanges. Can you give us an example of what that?
I mean, there are so many great ones, but some of the ones that stick out in my mind is that every place in Cuba there are choruses really for every age group. The choruses for elementary school students, junior high school students, adults, senior citizens, and one of there's a great chorus called Coro Luna that we visit in Cuba. They invite us to attend a rehearsal. We hear them sing. They sing some great traditional Cuban songs that are really fun to listen to. They also sing a song in English, and at the end we just get to hang out with them for a while, and they're trying to improve their English as much as they can. They're trying to speak English with us. A lot of the people who go with us really want to practice their Spanish, and we get a chance to speak Spanish with them. But even if neither one knows any of the other's language, just the joy of being there. And a lot of the groups that we bring come prepared with a song. So after they sing, the group sing a song back for them. One of the funniest things, one of the great things that happened when we went down with a group of people from here is that after Coro Luna sang, Pete Jones, the president of the ACIS, has a remarkable singing voice. And he treated them all to a version of La Boheme. So if you're ever any place with Pete at a conference or something, you've got to get him to sing La Boheme. But he sang it, and everybody's mouths were open because he sang it so well. And then he led everybody in a rendition of Guantanamera. So
oh, fun.
It's just fun,
Yeah.
And
it sounds so fun.
It's not like, I remember one of the terms we used a lot when I was at ACIS was you have to break the ice. In Cuba, there's no ice to break. Everybody just has had this pent-up desire to be friends and to get along and to do that. And I cannot speak for the future, but for right now, it's a very special welcome to appreciate. And
yeah.
I know it's a special time for everyone to go.
Yeah, I'm ready.
And especially if you can go when Pete goes and you can get him to sing.
Yeah,
so.
He can come as your personal singer. Pamela.
He should have to record a version of La Boheme and put it on your website.
All right, we can get him on the YouTube site. All right, Pamela,
Yes.
I want to hear from you about what inspired you to go to Cuba.
Oh, as being someone who's traveled for so many years, and of course being a Spanish teacher, you sort of said earlier, it was a forbidden fruit. So I guess that intrigued me even more. It's such a close neighbor, but yet, my whole life we've never been able to travel there. And when the opportunity came up, just like what you said, I wanted to go there before all of these changes. We go to so many places and there's Starbucks and all the things that we know, but I wanted to see it before it sort of did open up and change completely. And so I wanted to learn more about the culture and ways to enhance the curriculum in school. And, as a Spanish teacher, I tried to go to as many Spanish-speaking countries as possible. So it was just one of those things that it came up, and I had to. It was like that intrigue in me for so many years. And so when the opportunity came up, I couldn't turn it down. And I was so happy that I did, because it was just such a wonderful experience to go there.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much what everyone who goes says, is that, I'm so happy I went, I'm so happy I went now. It's such a great time to go before, especially right now where all this,
Yes.
these policy changes are occurring. And eventually, there will be more and more American influence or U.S. influence in Cuba. So I want to talk a little bit now about why people should visit Cuba with ACIS. As Mike mentioned, other companies are, I'm sure, scrambling right now to figure out how they're going to get groups to ACIS. Get groups to Cuba. So I want to talk a little bit about why people should choose to travel to Cuba with ACIS. Pamela, can you just speak to that first?
Sure. Having just completed my 10th trip, I hold all of my meetings and I talk all about number one, the relationship and the trust that I have with ACIS, and the quality that's being offered on each of the trips that we go on, the experience of 36 years that ACIS has with running trips for students. It's really the global network, how they monitor situations everywhere. That's how I talk always to the parents about that, because of the trust that I have with ACIS. The best selling point for that is that I trust ACIS, and so that I hope that the parents trust me with their children, and so that I have the confidence in whom I'm traveling with, and it just makes it go a little bit smoother, knowing that you have a network of people behind you, the confidence in the company, and really it's overall the quality of the experience that you get when traveling on an ACIS trip.
Yep. Mike, I know you can speak to this as well.
Well, I spent, I was one of the founders of ACIS, and I spent 20 years as president, and I really know about educational trips for high school students and teachers, and it's something I have always had a deep passion for. And before I worked with ACIS, I worked with another organization learning about educational travel for high school students and teachers. So I really feel like I understand what the best type of experience can be for high school students and teachers. After I left ACIS, I spent 15 years really learning about Cuba, first as an academic researcher, and afterwards arranging people-to-people programs, arranging programs for athletic teams who go to Cuba, and also for choral and dance companies who go to Cuba. And we started as a very small organization. We built lots and lots of friendships just with great people who will make people from ACIS feel extremely welcome. And we just have a great network of friendships and relationships there. We've also become the largest organization organizing educational trips in Cuba. We work with senior organizations, very well-known organizations that focus on senior citizens. We work with universities like Boston University, Bentley University. We've done programs with Pace University, with Harvard. We've worked with art museums. So we really have a very extensive portfolio of people who we've got to know in Cuba. We've got just really great friends there. And it's just so exciting now to take all of that and come and create with people here just great programs in Cuba, especially for people at ACIS. It's like coming home again. So
yeah, and it's so nice that
it's just great to be here, and I'm so excited. I had so much fun going down with a bunch of travel coordinators and with Pete in January, and we all agreed there's something very special that's going to happen. And it wasn't that we showed them the sites. We shared with the people who came with us our friendships and our relationships. And of course, you see the sites, and the things you see there are amazing. But really feeling like you're getting to know people, and how much people want to get to know us. And you know, Peter's already a legend in Cuba. So you already the way is already paved for you when you take an ACIS trip to Cuba.
And I think that that is huge. The fact that we have these established relationships, that we're not just suddenly this year trying to form these relationships, figure out how it all works. We are taking those 15 years of relationship building and experience in this destination, and now being able to offer that to our teachers and
Right.
all of our travelers. I think it's really exciting, and I think it really sets us apart as an organization to be offering these trips.
You know, looking at the list of people who signed in, I can see a few people who were traveling on ACIS when I was still here. And there's nothing like seeing old friends again, so it's great to be here with you guys.
People who travel with ACIS usually stick with us for a long time. We have a lot of loyal clients.
Absolutely.
All right, so now we're going to move right into talking about the itineraries. So I want to say we right now have 3 different itineraries for students, and we are working on a new itinerary for adult groups. For encore ensembles, itineraries are also in the works for you. Instead of going day by day through the itinerary itself, what we're going to do is cover the major cities, and Mike's going to talk about what the people-to-people interactions will be in those places and the things you'll do and see in those major cities. So Mike, I think we're starting, the first major city is Havana.
Well, yeah, Havana's an amazing place. You know, Cuba was the second place in the New World that Columbus discovered. And as I'm sure many of you know, Cuba was like the linchpin between the Spanish Empire and all of the vast riches it had in Central and South America. So Havana just has a beautiful old colonial part, and when you're there, there'll be a moment if you've spent time in Spain that you're just going to feel, oh my goodness, this is just like being back in the historic parts of Spain. There are places in Spain, in Cuba, that remind me of Toledo and remind me of Sevilla and remind me of some of the beautiful old colonial places. One of the most beautiful squares in the world is the Plaza de la Catedral in Havana. That it's just a beautiful Baroque cathedral with a big open square, and you just hear Spanish influencing, reverberating there in a beautiful way. One of the things about Havana is that it has an artistic tradition that goes back to the 17th century. Because Spain was such a dominant presence there, it wasn't just an island, it was like a province. So lots of Spanish artists went there, and there's art of every period, starting with religious art and then going through every artistic movement, just mirroring, really, in many ways. And European artists always went to Spain because there were commissions there, but Cuban artists also went to Europe and to the U.S. and to Mexico. So one of the most beautiful museums anywhere is the Museo de Bellas Artes in Cuba. There's there, and you just walk through the decade after decade of Cuban art, watching it go through the same type of movements that you'll see in the great museums of Europe. But there's always a special Cuban twist that you see. I love that museum. There's a place where it's like you're in 1955, which is before the revolution, and then you walk through the artistic expression while the revolution is happening, and then you look at the art afterwards. And you know, one of the things that you see is that artistic expression is always artistic expression, and that artistic expression was never repressed in Cuba. It was always encouraged. Not only do you go to the Museo de Bellas Artes, but there are so many great artists practicing in Cuba now that after you go and see the Museo de Bellas Artes, you visit an artist in their studio and see their great work. And you know, there are great, on several days during the week, there's a street, the Prado, where artists, contemporary artists and student artists exhibit, and you get to buy paintings. So you see really art everywhere. And you know, walking through Old Havana is something really special. It's been declared a World Heritage Site by the United Nations, and no one has to explain it to you. You'll just know.
Yeah.
You'll just know right away.
So the next city we were going to talk about is Trinidad.
Yeah, Trinidad Trinidad is an old colonial city. And, Toledo, one of the things that happened in Toledo is that it just couldn't be developed, it couldn't be expanded because of its geographic location. So it always remained very intact, and when you go to Toledo, it's still 40,000 people. The same thing happened in Trinidad. Trinidad is on the southern coast of Cuba, so there wasn't, the roadways bypassed it, and there wasn't enough water around there to support development. So it's just a colonial gem. And when you go, it's just the most breathtaking, beautiful place. I think if you're looking at your computer screens now, you can see the rooftops of Toledo. This is actually, the lower picture is taken from Museo Romantico. It's a beautiful view from inside the museum. And that's the Church of San Francisco. So one of the things that you do in Trinidad, Trinidad was in the heart of the sugar growing region. So you go out into this beautiful, beautiful countryside, and you visit the Sugar Mill Valley, which has also been declared a World Heritage Site by the United Nations. And one of the things about Trinidad is that there's just a great tradition of what they call trova music, troubadour music. So there are lots of places where you get to hear just traditional Cuban music. If you like Buena Vista Social Club music, it's live and it's dynamic, and I don't know, most people who go to Trinidad end up getting a chance to improve their salsa dancing lessons.
Yay. So. I think music is definitely something that people think about doing, seeing, being part of when they're in Cuba.
No matter where you go in Cuba, there's live music around. When you come home, you're going to go, there's something really strange about being home. And suddenly you're going to realize that's because there's no live music around all the time. Live music is part of the life in Cuba. You'll hear it in the restaurants you go to. You'll hear it lots of places. So.
That's great.
And by the way, just one other small place, the most beautiful sunset you're ever going to see in your life is on the beach in Trinidad. It is just a beautiful place to watch a sunset.
Awesome. All right, one of the next destinations is Vinales.
Yeah, Vinales is in western Cuba, and unlike here, it's sort of off the beaten track. So there are only 3 or 4 or 5 hotels in the whole Vinales province, and there are very unique mountains there. Actually, pretty good slides here of these karst mountains that are you can see there. It's just a unique landscape, and you do some great things out here. First of all, the landscape just takes your breath away. But there are tobacco farms and other types of farms, so this is where a lot of the agriculture in Cuba is. It's a place also where you just get to see how remote areas of Cuba are. It's a place that everybody falls in love with. You get to go on a canoe ride through a spooky Indian cave that's really fun. And it's so great because it's so cool in there and it's so hot outside. So we always tell everyone to bring a sweatshirt or something for the canoe ride in the Indian cave. And out here you're going to actually have lunch at a farmhouse, and it's a place where you'll visit some rural schools, and you'll meet some people who practice art out there. You'll also visit an orchid farm, which is great, an orchid garden, and you'll also see some beautiful waterfalls. So this is a great part.
So how long does it take to get from Havana to Vinales?
To Vinales, it takes 3.5, something like that, 3.5 hours. You make you stop en route in Soroa, where the orchid garden is. It's actually a national park. The vistas of the sea, and it's just you're struck by just how beautiful everything is. So.
And you said this is where they would do a school visit?
Yes.
It's possible to do them?
Yeah.
Are they more casual or are they arranged?
No, there are arranged school visits. school visits, it's hard to say exactly where it's going to be. It depends a lot on what time of year you're there,
Yes,
what the schedule. You never want to be intrusive when you visit a school.
Right.
And it might be that your visit happens at a time that is different, but we have to wait to be invited to visit schools. But it's something that you'll do. There are lots of afternoon activities on all the programs that students from Cuba and our students will participate in.
Okay. Okay. So the canoe ride, someone actually has a question about the canoe ride. Are they single canoes, or is it two people in a canoe? Could you tell us just a little bit more about that?
There's one person in the back who's, paddling the canoe.
Okay.
And then there are, 4, 5, 6 people in the canoe. It's not individual.
Oh, okay.
It's not a gondola ride.
So it's sort of like you could call it a tour, right?
You could call
it
a tour. I mean,
just a paddler.
There's a paddler. Yes, there's a paddler. And, you walk in.
There's no headsets and commentary, right? I'm
not
just
at
kidding.
All. No, not at all. And, this has been going on forever. I mean, when I was, this is not something new. The thing to realize is that there have been visitors going to Cuba from every place but the United States for a long time. So it's not
like they've never had tourism.
No,
right.
no. And, but the difference is they've had lots of tourists, but people from the U.S. who go, they're not tourists, they're travelers. And we're forced to engage Cubans while we're there. It's one of the reasons that our government is encouraging us really to go, is to be goodwill ambassadors and help us open up channels of communication and have an opportunity to be with the people. So there are lots of tourists, but Americans who go genuinely are travelers right now. It's a great time to go. The canoe ride's fun, but it's not dangerous, it's not spooky. And, I'm the biggest coward when it comes to things like that. And, I go as often as I can. It's not a huge thing. I mean, it doesn't go on for hours and hours. It's fun. It's a nice feature.
It sounds fun. All right, so let's talk about the last two. I like that picture of the beach. The last two cities, Varadero and Matanzas.
No, Matanzas.
Matanzas, sorry.
So Matanzas is another old colonial city, and it is a place where it's great to visit. We visit something there called, the Cubans have really, have just remained autonomous little family units, and they've had to know how to take care of themselves and to do all sorts of different things, which it's the way our country used to be. But coincidentally, our farm is just a remarkable place. It's a place where they grow their own food and vegetables and all of that. And they also have a pottery. And, the whole family participates, and there are all sorts of things. But it's like, it's just a little island of humanity where we're invited to come, and they cook a great lunch, and we do most of the time we make some ceramic there that they show us very proudly all the things that they make. But it's just a very self-sufficient place, but they're happy to open themselves up to us. There's a youth chorus in Matanzas where we go, and we actually bring lunch. So we bring lunch, and they perform for us, and then we have lunch together, and then just everybody hangs out and has a good time. And I don't know everything that happens, but it's just great to be there and see all the smiling faces. And
they must love that, having
they love
that exchange.
They love that. And if you sing, if you dance, don't sit on your hands. Get up and participate. These programs, the groups really can't be larger than 20 or 25, because this isn't a lecture. These are people-to-people meetings, right? Everybody has to be able to engage. And, you have to come out of yourself a little bit. And you'll see the Cubans will come out of themselves a little bit. And all of a sudden, just something happens. It's, there's something very exciting about it. And the youth chorus is, they're just fun. They just,
Yeah,
and we're fun for them.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity on these trips to interact with Cubans and talk to them and share what they're doing in their lives in the different parts of the country. I think that that's such a benefit of these trips, and a benefit of this people-to-people requirement is that you get that
It's true.
built in, without having to say, you know what, I need that. We want to have a school visit. It's already built into all the itineraries.
A lot of people have said to us, we wish we could do these kinds of meetings in all of the other countries we go to. This is something that U.S. policy has made this necessary, and it's something that is really positive. So
it is positive.
It's turned out to be very positive.
All right, so we all want to go to Cuba now. But we got to dig into why and how, some of the details and the logistics of how to go.
First of all, just bear in mind, capacity is limited, so sign up soon. We have space booked, but I think we really need people to make sure they enroll early so we can make really great arrangements for everyone.
Yeah. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about how a Cuba trip is different from, a typical ACIS tour. I know that there are limitations on how flights are booked, the flexibility of daily activities, which we've sort of touched on already. But what I want to hear you talk about a little bit is what people can expect regarding passports, visas, spending money, customization, and rooming. So I want to start first with the passports and visas and just tell people what to expect and how to plan for that.
I mean, it's all transparent. We take care of all of that. The most important thing is we need photostatic copies, or that's the wrong word. We need scans of everyone's passport at least 45 days prior to departure, because the process requires us to have a scan of your passport. And the teachers are going to have to send us or someone. I mean, I don't know how we're going. The logistics is we need scans of everyone's passport.
Okay. So students need to have a valid passport 45 days before departure. And it has to be a valid passport. If you have that and you have there's a scan here 45 days before departure, the visas, you're not just waived into Cuba and you're not just waived out of the United States. The check-in process here is an elaborate process. It takes time. Each student has to stand individually before a customs agent in Cuba, present their passport, present their visa, stand there for a few minutes, and then be asked to go through. This is not just waive them all. Right. So let's talk a little bit about how the flights work, because while we're talking about being at customs, being at the airport, so for ACIS trips, all groups will fly to Miami and spend one night in Miami.
That is the current structure. It could be that any time, it could be that U.S. airlines start flying to Cuba. It's only an hour past Miami, but until a major change happens and there's scheduled service from the U.S. to Cuba, which there isn't now, everyone spends one night in Miami prior to going to Cuba. We meet you in Miami and give you your tickets to go onward, your visa and all of that, spend the night, get up probably very early the next morning and go to the airport. The check-in process is elaborate. It's not electronic tickets. It's all paper tickets. It's all stand here.
It's old school. Old school was only like a couple of years ago, too. I mean, we've only been doing e-tickets for a short amount of time.
Well, old school is charter flights from the East Passenger Terminal at Kennedy Airport when everybody used to have to go to Kennedy to go to Europe. But this is old school Miami. This is where you all have to be in Miami and go in one person at a time. It takes a while. You've got to be at the airport really 3 hours before departure in Miami. You fly for 45 minutes. You spend another couple of hours in the airport in Havana, or an hour and a half, waiting for your bags, going through customs one at a time. You walk out of the customs hall. There are hundreds of people there waiting, and most of them are waiting to welcome their relatives, but your guide and driver will be there, and you'll get onto your bus and be taken into your hotel in Havana.
Okay, cool. So we've had a couple questions about safety, and I want to address it because people are asking, and I know that you have said there is nowhere safer, but if you could address that, and then Pamela, maybe you could speak to that as well.
Yeah, truly, I mean, there's no place safer. First of all, no one in Cuba has a gun or has violent crime is virtually unheard of in Cuba. It just doesn't happen. It's not a violent place. The amount of pickpocketing is, I don't know, so low compared to what it might be in Cuba. But you'll feel safe. But having said that, it's very important. Students can't walk off on their own. It's really important for everyone to stay in groups. The schedules are all really full and busy, so there's not a whole lot of free time, but you will not feel menaced. You will not feel anyone has any anti-American feelings. You'll be made to feel welcome. The Cubans are very proud of the fact, and rightfully so, that the streets are safe. There aren't drug problems. There aren't all sorts of things that we hear about in other places. Cuba is rightfully proud of the fact that people feel safe there.
Yeah. Pamela, what was your feeling when you were there about safety?
Absolutely what Mike said. Not at any moment did I feel unsafe. You know, I spent my time in Havana, and so, you know, going out, obviously as an adult, but going out at night, you know, going to certain restaurants, you know, going to the Hotel Nacional, not one moment did I feel unsafe. And I really, what Mike said too, you know, how the Cuban people treat you, is exactly how I felt when I was there.
Okay, good. So another question was about health concerns.
Yeah, I mean, again, Cuba has, from a health standpoint, a very high level of health care compared to lots of places. That being said, you know, our health care system here is more modern, more advanced, more everything, but all of the hotels have a doctor and nurse on call. Unlike here, if you need to see a doctor or nurse, they'll come to see you in the hotel. There isn't, I mean, you know, there are a few very strict rules. One is don't drink the water. Two is don't just buy street food. It's just because our systems aren't used to it. The places where we take people, you know, sometimes people get stomach upsets anywhere, but it just doesn't happen very much in Cuba. The food is safe. We don't want people just going off any place because we're just not sure of the health standards any place. But we take 3,000 to 4,000 people to Cuba every year, and there are a lot of health issues. Just like here, if you're there in the height of the summer, you want to have mosquito repellent. You want to make sure that you drink enough water. One of the things that can happen is if you're not careful is you can get dehydrated, so you have to drink enough water. And if you need medical care, and remember too, if there's a medical emergency, you're 45 minutes away from the USA.
Yeah, that's true. It is so close.
We've had, you know, because we've taken a lot of seniors, we've had a few, I don't know, people who've tripped and things like that, and you know, they just dealt with it. And they dealt with it. The medical system there is such that people from all over the Caribbean basin go there. So I don't think that is something that I would be overly concerned about.
Good. All right. So we also want to talk about spending money because I think that's a question that a lot of people have. I know right now you cannot use credit cards or debit cards or traveler's checks, and you've said to me that that could change and probably will change at some point. But right now,
yeah, you know, the thing to remember is that all dinners, all breakfasts, 6 out of 7 lunches are included. With all meals, you get 2 beverages. We're also providing a couple bottles of water every day. So there's water available. You don't have to pay for water. There'll be bottles of water for everyone. But, you know, you will spend money. There are lots of opportunities to buy paintings, to buy arts, crafts, very funky things. Everyone will want to come back with T-shirts. So I would say, and you can't get more money. I mean, your debit card won't work. So in everybody's room, there'll be a safe where as soon as you get there, you lock up your passport, you lock up all your cash, and you keep, I don't know, $50 or $100 in your pocket. And, you know, my feeling would be, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it was my daughter, I'd probably give her $300 or $400. My brother would probably give her an extra $100, so she'd have $500. And, you know, I would expect her to come back with $100 or $200.
Okay.
But you don't want to run out of money. And,
right.
You know, they're going to see things, and you can impose limits, but they're going to have enough to, everything they need is provided.
Okay, good. All right, so I want to quickly talk about hotels. Just a little bit about their 3- and 4-star, well located, and I want you to talk about specifically the Casas Particulares and tell people what those are.
Well, Casa Particulare is a bed and breakfast. The first areas that Cuba allowed there to be private businesses were paladaries, which are private restaurants, which are small restaurants that are run by families where most of the meals will be taken. And the other was bed and breakfast. So there are families who have large older houses who have converted them to bed and breakfast. They're all licensed by the Cuban government, and usually they'll have 3 or 4 rooms, and you know there'll be 2, perhaps 3 students per room, and in every Casa Particular that we use, we're only planning at this point to use them in Trinidad, but that may change. They're nice places. They're good places. Just think of a bed and breakfast. Think of a bed and breakfast here.
And another cultural exchange opportunity.
And it's a great cultural exchange
I think they sound cool.
You know, I've stayed in them. I liked them for a couple of nights. Would I want to spend my whole trip in one? Well, maybe when I was in college. But nowadays, for a couple of nights, it's
an experience.
It's an experience. It's better than that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the breakfast is more than you can possibly imagine eating. So,
all right.
And
all of our hotels, we stay in double and triple rooms.
Double and triple rooms.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So people want to know about the food.
Good. You know, I think, first of all, the food is so much better than it used to be. And that's largely because we eat in, for the most part, in places that are called paladares. Paladares are private restaurants run by families that have been licensed by the government to create their own places. The staples of the Cuban diet are rice and beans, pork, chicken, some fish. The food is hearty. It's good. If you said, could you do a gourmet trip to Cuba, I would say maybe not. Could you do a great barbecue trip to Cuba? I would say that, yeah, there's some pretty good barbecue to be had there, and that's the kind of food you should be expecting. Hearty, good. Kids who are fussy eaters, you know, my daughter's 37 now, but you know, she's traveled with me for a long time, and my grandchildren are fussy eaters also. They're not going to have a great time in Cuba. It's not a place where you want to be fussy. Excuse me. Cuban kids don't grow up to be fussy eaters because they're just happy to have what they have. Yeah. And it's a good place to get over being a fussy eater. Having said that, there aren't a lot of salads. There are some fresh foods, but they're seasonal. They don't get fresh food all year round the way that we do, because when something in season, it's there. Yeah. When it's not in season, there isn't any. Breakfasts are a buffet. Lunches, sometimes they're sandwiches, sometimes it's pizza. We found some places that have very good pizza. No one will starve. Some people will come back and say the food was really good, and it's good. It's pretty good enough.
You get your fill of rice and beans.
You
Yeah.
get a lot of rice and
I
beans.
like rice and beans.
But, you know, I hate to, you know, I don't know.
Pamela, were you going to say something?
No, just, you know, I don't eat pork or chicken or meat. I do eat fish, but I was fine eating the food as well, rice, beans, and I was able to get fish when I went.
Oh, good.
I was actually okay with the food, yes.
Okay, okay. You know, I remember, you know, kids don't love the food in Spain, and you know the
Yes.
Spanish,
Yes. We
the
struggle.
heritage of food in Cuba is a mixture of American barbecue, Spanish, and you know everybody in the world loves pizza. There's plenty of pizza and there's pasta around too.
Yep. All right. So.
The one thing we didn't say is bring snacks.
Oh, right. Yes. You
There
wanted to
aren't
talk
a lot-
about that.
there- you know, and bring snacks not only enough for yourself, but enough to share. Because snacks aren't a tradition in Cuba. There's not a lot of places to get snacks. You can get ice creams. There's very good ice cream in Cuba, but the idea of chocolate bars or lots of cookies and things like that, and you know, I really encourage everyone to make sure they bring lots of granola bars. Granola bars and things like that are just great to have there, and it's great to have enough to share with the people that you're going to be seeing.
Yeah.
So bring boxes and boxes. You'll never come back with any. And,
But remember that 44-pound weight limit on your suitcase.
Yeah, well, you know, everything gets...
Just wear the same outfit. Just wear one sundress.
Well, you know, the truth is that, you know, the weather's warm. You don't need a lot of heavy clothes.
That's true.
So.
True. So I want to shift gears a little bit right now and talk a little bit about how to prepare students. Pamela, I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, but oops, sorry, I skipped right over travel logistics. Sorry about that. I wanted to mention this too. We're going to talk about how to stay in touch. Mike, can you touch on this a little bit?
It's not easy, okay? And, you know, you can, if you make phone calls from your room, or if you buy a phone card, you know, phone cards, it's not easy. There's no good solution to this. Cell phones, U.S. cell phones at this time do not work in Cuba. That could change, but right now, our cell phones and their our cell systems and their cell systems don't work. Mm. So, and phone cards, not really either. You can call them in their rooms when they're there, but they're not there that much. Mm-hmm. The likelihood could be that the person at the desk has a hard time understanding exactly who you want. We're going to suggest, I think, that there's internet available most hotels, but the access is slow. There's usually, it's not easy to get access. So I think we're going to suggest that teachers have like a list of the parents of everyone's going.
Yes, so send one email.
And that once a day they send an email saying what they did that day.
Liz, can I actually add something as well?
Sure.
Sure. Just quickly, because with what Mike is saying with the cell phones and not working, the one thing though that did work for me, the hotel did have Wi-Fi in the lobby of the hotel, and so I forget what I had paid for it, but I did pay for the Wi-Fi. Used my American cell phone under Wi-Fi, and I used Viber, which actually. So that actually worked. You know, it was a small area of the lobby where I was able to get it. As Mike said, you know, it's not the best connection, but under Wi-Fi, just paying the fee at the hotel to get that, and I was able to use the phone app Viber. Yeah, so Viber is a phone app that you can actually use to make phone calls.
But not for voice. It's for text.
No, actually, I'm sorry, voice does work.
Yeah, Viber is voice.
It is blocked again. So it works in terms that the Cubans don't want it to be that kind of contact. So, and it's really not that they don't want it. There's not enough bandwidth. So there's very limited bandwidth in Cuba. And Viber did work for a period of time. Skype worked for a period of time. But all of them, because they clog up the bandwidth so much, they're disabled. So I wouldn't count on being able to use anything like that. WhatsApp and Viber and others do work when you sign in, and you can use it for text. And you know, you will have the phone number of, you know, you'll have a phone number from us. If there's an emergency, we'll be able to contact people there who do have Cuban cell phones. So it won't be that we can stay in touch, but and internet is available in the hotels. But just the amount of free time you have, and the amount of time you have because you're part of a group that has a very full schedule, I wouldn't. There'll be opportunities for emails, but the idea that 25 students are going to sign in and
no, I think the thought is that that we'll use the old ACIS phone chain sort of model where you call one person and tell them to pass it on. You send one email to everybody. It's going to be that type of communication.
And it'll be really good for students' eyes to be not staring at their smartphones, sending text all day long.
Yeah. What was our campaign? Look up, right?
Yeah.
Look up. Stop looking at that phone.
Look up.
All right. So now we can talk a little bit about how we would prepare students and parents for sending their students on a trip and students themselves for heading over there. Pamela, do you want to speak to this a little bit?
Sure. With each meeting, with each trip that I plan, first what I do is I host maybe 3 to 4 meetings per year with the parents, and regardless of the destination, I always talk about my confidence with ACIS first. So again, talking about how I have confidence in ACIS, and therefore it gives me more time to spend with the children and the students, and so reminding parents, to have the confidence in me because I trust the company that I'm traveling with. The logistics are handled, and so I can devote my time and attention to their children. About hosting these meetings, what I normally do is I give parents a background information about me first, because my trips are not sanctioned by the school, and so sometimes I do have parents that don't know me. And I talk about all my travel experiences over the years, and that I not only travel as a teacher, but I also travel personally, and so that they understand that traveling for me is a passion, and so that I have experience with that. And then I'm constantly keeping the parents informed. I'm on social media with the parents. It's Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and I constantly just provide them with plenty of information, provide them with pictures of my trips and my experiences, just so that they have the confidence in where, in where we're going and what we're doing.
Yeah. So, and at those meetings with the students, you do things like preparing them for the cultural differences, talking about all these things we're covering today.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And then travel trivia, sometimes you make it fun, trivia questions and what do they know about it, what to be expected. Of course, there's always the unexpected, but you give them as much information as you possibly can so that they go in not feeling that everything is completely unknown to them. And I think that's the best, just keeping everybody informed as best as you can. And the meeting should be fun, but, also informative, and do a great meeting like that. Mm-hmm. And then the final meeting before departure is always handling all of the logistics, what to expect, and all the little things that we may not cover at the initial meetings, getting them excited about a trip.
Exactly. And, I've talked to both you and Mike about this, how these trips really are for students who are interested in a cultural experience. These trips are for students who want to represent, the United States in Cuba and be these cultural ambassadors for us. Mike, you have said that numerous times that Cuba is a destination that has beautiful beaches, but it is not a beach destination. People should not think about going there to lie on a beautiful beach.
No, it's so important right now. These trips are really just as significant for the people we're going to see as it is for those people who are going there. And this is not only for the U.S. students who are going. This is for the people who haven't had an opportunity to get to know who we are and what we're like. And when you're there, the impressions you make, and you're going to, the Cubans are just so well-mannered and so appreciative and just so engaged. And those are the kinds of students who really belong on this trip. And they will interact. They'll just, something spontaneous, something great will happen for them. But, if they're going because they want to hang out on the beach or sit around in cafes or take a lot of selfies of themselves in front of amazing sights, it's not the right trip. This is a right trip for students who realize that this trip is not only going to make a difference for them, it's going to make a difference for the people we're going to visit.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, Pamela, when you went, you felt as though your trip made a difference. Just showing up in Cuba right now, and being from the United States, and being engaged, and just letting them see what great people we are.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm so proud because the Americans who have traveled on our programs to Cuba, we get it. I mean, we're just such a great people. We're just so open and so generous, and we want so much to find a way to make the world a better place. And the people in Cuba, that's the way they feel right now. And just being engaged with them, and this is a place where our presence can really make a difference and help something positive happen, so that in the future, our whole set of relationships in the Western Hemisphere will be based on people-to-people relationships, and not frightening news broadcasts.
Yeah, that actually really ties right into my final question for both of you, and that was that should people feel good about traveling to Cuba? You know, what I mean by that is, are we supporting a dictatorship, or are we supporting the people of Cuba? And I think you sort of just answered that, but I think that's on people's minds when they think about Cuba. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, Pamela, what do you think?
You know, it is an interesting question, and it's sort of something I had toyed with, you know, for years before going. And when I finally went, you know, you realize that you're trying not to support dictatorships and countries that have human rights issues, but you know, my thought when I went was that, you know, Americans going, you know, maybe it's something that helps to ease the relationships that the two countries have, you know, having the people-to-people exchange. And so my feeling is that when we go, you know, perhaps it's going to change the way the Cuban people are treated. And, you know, I know that the ACIS motto, and it's something I believe too, that travel changes lives. And I just saw that, you know, last week being in Europe with my students. But, you know, it changes the lives for our participants on every trip that they take. It's the best week of their life, and they just love it. But I think it's also that for a trip like this to Cuba that, you know, perhaps it is going to change the lives of the Cuban people for the better. And so that's why I'm supportive of going to Cuba.
Yeah, and, you know, I feel very strongly that, you know, I've gotten to know Cuba through its people, not through its government. And, you know, my whole career has been in international education and exchange, and I think there's something very special that happens when trips are designed with that in mind. And, you know, ACIS has taken people to the Soviet Union, has taken people to China. We haven't, the criteria that ACIS always used is that we take people any place where people are going to be safe. That if people are not going to be safe, we can't in good conscience take them there. But by us going to places where people are safe, and by students who don't have all of these preconceived ideas of what the world is like, and who aren't full of judgment, and just letting ourselves be there as people. You know, I'm just going to you know, share one personal thing, and that is that, you know, my mother was born in Germany and survived in camps. And she told me when I was very young once that she said to me, we knew we were really in trouble in Germany when visitors stopped coming here, and we were alone and no one in the world knew what was happening. And all we wanted to do was see foreigners. And, you know, travel does change lives, and we act like it just changes our life, but it not only changes our lives, it changes the lives of the people we go to see. And one of the things that everyone who goes to Cuba should just be cognizant of the fact that, you know, someone else said that when the people of the world get together and learn how to get along, our leaders will have no choice but to follow them. And this is a chance for us to be leaders and to show that we know how to get along with people, and the people of Cuba know how to get along with us. And, you know, politics, sure, very important. And I never want to support a dictatorship, and I never want to support anything negative. But I always want to be able to be present with people all over the world and for them to get to know us as who we are and to get to know me for who I am. And I'll be really proud to take people from schools in the United States. And I know the people who go on ACIS trips are very special people. And believe me, I know all about that issue, but it's one that everyone has to make a decision on their own. But at ACIS, we made a decision a long time ago when we took people to the Soviet Union, when we took people to China, when we took people to Eastern Europe and East Berlin, and that is that there's just something very special about people engaging other people.
Yeah.
This is a special opportunity for that.
Yeah. That was really well said by both of you. And I think that so much of the media focuses on the political changes and how that will affect business and, these business exchanges, these corporate things, like things like Starbucks, things that Cuba doesn't have right now. But there has been very little focus on I think, the influence that the people visiting can have. And, I think that influence, you're right, has such a lasting impact, and that those personal experiences by the people of Cuba and by the U.S. citizens is going to be what is the catalyst for more change.
I think it's been the catalyst for the change that has taken us this far.
Yeah.
But the change is not only for us, it's for them, it's for both of us. And we have to go to places where we're welcome and make sure that we always stay welcome there. And Cuba is one of those places. And this is a great opportunity, and I can't wait to see a whole bunch of ACIS backpacks walking around in Cuba.
Yeah, me too. Ooh, ACIS backpacks. All right, so thank you both so much. I really, really appreciate all of your insight and
thank you.
Personal experience. I want to take some questions now because we have had a flurry of questions throughout the presentation. I've been watching the screen go zzz. So someone asked about another question about food, and that was, if you can't drink the water, how do you have ice cream or trust the food?
Well, ice cream you can trust. Any processed food you can trust. Any of the places that we take you, Cuba's not Mexico, it's not lots of places. You just have to follow the guidance that you're given. The restaurants have very high sanitary standards. Cuba is, to get a restaurant license granted by the Cuban government, you've got to be of a certain standard. And it's not a place. I mean, you can.
Well, and it's also not like they don't have people visiting all the time. It's just that now U.S. citizens are able to go.
You can get Nestle's ice cream, chocolate-covered ice creams and drumsticks and things like that.
Okay.
It's not, but they're very proud. They have their own ice cream. Cubans love ice cream, and they actually have extremely good ice cream.
Good.
Some very inventive flavors as well.
Oh, good. Well, someone also asked, and I think Pamela touched on this a little bit because she's a vegetarian. What about if you're vegan or vegetarian?
It's not unheard of in Cuba, but it's not easy. Vegan is probably harder than vegetarian, but you're going to end up having to just accept what is available for you. You might have to eat white rice. You might have to have vegetables. There are vegetarians who go, and
they
they
must
come
have
back.
vegetarians.
Then there are Cubans who are vegetarians also, but and there are, but it's not the staple of the Cuban diet.
Okay. All right. Another question about free time, and I think we sort of touched on this, that there's the trip is mostly structured.
Free time is limited because there are so many interesting things to do. So there's no restriction. It's just that to have a full-time schedule of people-to-people meetings, which is a requirement by the U.S. government, and to see the sites, that there is definitely some free time. But the programs are very full, and no one says, "I wish we didn't do that." I mean, and everyone says the best parts of the trip are the people-to-people meetings. They're really fun. They're really exciting. They're really engaging. So.
Okay. Here's another one about someone who's looking at us and Explorica. They said they're considering traveling with us or Explorica. Why should they choose to travel with ACIS?
Well,
I mean, we talked a lot about that. But.
There are lots of reasons. I mean, ACIS's standard of hotels is higher, which is important. We stay in hotels that are better located. The itineraries are designed with 15 years of experience by someone who has 20 years of experience in programs for high school students, so we very carefully designed the itinerary. We include lots of things like bottles of water. We include beverages with meals. We include the departure tax. We stay in hotels that are of a high standard, and I don't want to. I think if there's I don't know if there is a difference in price, but if there is a difference in price, it's just to make sure that these are truly great trips.
Okay. Okay, someone has asked about the Encore performance tours. Can we talk a little bit about the performing, or what that might entail?
Especially about choruses, yes.
Okay.
Sure. So, every place in Cuba has a chorus. So, choral groups are extremely welcome. Every other year there's a big choral festival in Havana. It's a place where people who love to sing just have the best experiences. We've taken some small choruses of 20 people and some choruses as large as 125. And we have really great friends who are choral directors there. The program generally entails that the U.S. chorus sings first. First, you arrive. Amazing. And there's a welcome dinner. You meet some of the people who are involved in choral groups. The next day, you have a rehearsal, and you rehearse with a Cuban choral group. Subsequently, the following day, you have a performance where the U.S. chorus sings first, the Cuban chorus sings second, and then both of you sing together. And you're so engaged with the choral group, and it's news. So, I would say that for choral groups, it's very welcoming. It's a great way to get to know people. The people who sing in Cuba are like the people in the choruses here. They just have such a great time together. We have some meals together. It's really fun. So we have a lot of experience with that. It's just something that's really fun to do. For performing groups, in choruses, we've invited choruses, so choruses have come from Cuba to the U.S. and have actually stayed with choral groups here, stayed in their homes, and we've done programs with Cuban choruses here and U.S. choruses there, so it's a great thing to do. There hasn't been, what other kind of performing groups are you interested in besides choral?
And orchestra, perhaps?
Orchestra is something that there hasn't been an orchestra in Cuba in 50 years. The New York Philharmonic planned to go a few years ago, but there were logistical reasons and it was canceled. We're working with a couple of groups to do some orchestras this year. I think it'll be something that will be great. There are a lot of logistical issues that have to be worked out, but I think we could probably handle one or two orchestras this year. There's not going to be. It's not something we can take as many choral groups as who want to go, and I think our limit is going to be one or two orchestras.
When you talk about all the choral groups singing together, I just picture them all like smiling and holding hands and singing. I don't know why.
I was in an audience. It was just amazing. So there's the Cuban National Chorus was singing with Voices from the Heart Chorus from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And, you know, there were 5 or 10 U.S. people there who weren't in the chorus. There were people from the U.S. interest section in Havana. And then the place was filled with Cubans. And at the end, when they sang the finale together, everyone had tears running down their eyes. It was so beautiful. And then, you know, at the end, the first vice president of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, came up to me and said, "It's such a pleasure, it's such an honor, and we're so glad that you're here. And it's so great that we're discovering all the things that we can share together." So
yeah,
it's
music is definitely something that we share a love for. So we probably have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Someone has asked the best time to go, and specifically, what is the weather like in March?
Well, March is what March. So weather, I don't know.
Right.
I've never been so cold in my whole life as I've been in the last period of time. And
we're in Boston, in case anyone is wondering.
I have friends who
we have over 100 inches of snow in the last month.
And I have friends who are in Florida who are complaining that it's only 50 degrees in Florida. So, you know, weather is very hard to predict. But in March, you can expect the weather to be in the 70s and 80s. It is a time when the weather is beautiful. My favorite months, March is a very nice month to go, and it's, you know, January and February will be in the 60s and 70s. It's also a very nice time to go. But the best months to go, in my opinion, are April to June, when in April it's like summer here, in May it's like summer here, and in June the rainy season hasn't begun and it's warm and like here. I wouldn't recommend to anyone to go in August or September.
Too hot?
Too hot, just too hot, too much humidity. Cuba's beautiful in April, May, and June, and in January, February, March, it's so much better than it would be here. So,
I mean, it can't be that different from southern Florida's weather, right? I mean,
it's, you know, it's maybe 5 degrees warmer.
Yeah.
You have to remember there are 2 coasts in Cuba. There's the Atlantic coast and the Caribbean coast. So Trinidad is on the Caribbean coast, and it's like being in the Caribbean. Havana is on the Atlantic coast, so it's warmer than Florida. Miami is always warmer than northern Florida. The weather's nice. So I think it's great anytime.
Yeah.
I think it's great anytime.
Being in Boston right now, I would.
But
if
you can go in April, May, or June, it's a time when the prices are more favorable. When it's just a great time to be there. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that is our last question. I think there probably were a few more questions out there. If anyone asked a question that we did not answer yet, your tour consultant or program consultant will follow up with you tomorrow. This webinar will be live on our YouTube channel in the morning, and you should all receive an email telling you where you can find it. You can subscribe to our ACIS channel and see all the other webinars we've done. Hopefully this piqued your interest to lead a group of adult students or an encore ensemble to Cuba. I know it piqued my interest, and I would love to be there anytime. So thank you so much for listening tonight, and we really do look forward to sharing this wonderful opportunity with you. And I know that we feel so lucky to have the experience of Mike's last 15 years and his organization's expertise in Cuba that really will help us stand out from any other organization offering trips to Cuba. So thank you so much to Mike and Pamela for joining us, and I really look forward to seeing all of you lighting up Cuba with those ACIS backpacks next year. So thank you so much.